Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Foundations. The sledgehammer connected with the wall in a satisfying crunch of plaster and wood. Dust billowed around Brock Maddox as he stepped back to admire his handiwork. At 42, he still preferred to get his hands dirty on demolition days. It kept him connected to the roots of Maddox Construction, the company he'd built from nothing into one of Boston's premier renovation firms. "Boss, the clients are here," called Dennis, his foreman. Brock dusted off his hands and rolled down his sleeves. The Peabody Mansion renovation was his biggest residential project yet. Exactly the type of high-profile job that had built his reputation for transforming historic properties into modern masterpieces while respecting their architectural integrity. Later that evening, Brock sat in his home office reviewing blueprints when the front door opened. Heels clicked across the marble foyer, a sound that once quickened his pulse but now tightened his jaw. Working late again, Aubrey Maddox appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. At 36, she remained as stunning as when they'd met 8 years ago at the Governor's Charity Gala. "Big project," Brock replied without looking up. "Peabody wants changes to the East Wing." "You work too hard." Aubrey crossed the room and ran her fingers across his shoulders. "Remember when you used to leave the office before midnight? Remember when you used to be home before midnight?" Brock countered, immediately regretting the edge in his voice. Aubrey's fingers paused. "The museum fundraiser ran long. I told you I'd be late." Brock nodded, remembering a time when such explanations didn't feel rehearsed. Their marriage had begun like a fairy tale. The self-made contractor and the art curator from one of Boston's oldest families. The first 3 years were passionate, adventurous. Then something shifted. "Your father called," Brock said. "He wants us for dinner Sunday." Aubrey's expression flickered. "Did he say why? Since when does Stanford Porter need a reason to summon the peasant who married his daughter?" Brock's smile took the sting out of his words. "Mostly. He respects you," Aubrey insisted, but her eyes drifted away. "No, he respects what I've built. There's a difference." Brock closed his laptop. "Coming to bed? I need a shower first." As Aubrey left, Brock's phone buzzed. A text from his old Army buddy, Wes Donovan. "Still on for tomorrow? Got some info you should hear." Brock stared at the message. 3 months ago, he'd asked Wes, now a private investigator, to look into some discrepancies in the company accounts. But Wes's tone suggested he'd found something else entirely. 8 a.m., the usual place. Brock replied. Sleep eluded him that night. Lying beside Aubrey, he cataloged the subtle changes of the past year. The new wardrobe, the increased work events, the guarded phone, and the faint scent of cologne that wasn't his. Their anniversary was 3 weeks away. 8 years. Brock had been planning something special, hoping to recapture what they'd lost. But first, he needed the truth. Chapter 2. Suspicions. She's seeing someone. Wes slid a manila folder across the booth at Riley's Diner, their regular breakfast spot, since Wes had left the service 4 years after Brock. Brock didn't open it. Ooh, Tyson Blackwell. The name hit Brock like another sledgehammer. Aubrey's ex? The quarterback? Wes nodded grimly. Former quarterback. Current financial advisor at Harrington Wealth Management. And coincidentally, newly appointed financial consultant to the Porter Family Foundation. Stanford hired him. Brock's coffee grew cold as the pieces aligned. How long? At least 4 months of regular meetings. Hotel receipts, text records. Wes hesitated. And there's something else. Her father knows. Of course he does. Brock finally opened the folder, scanning photos of Aubrey entering an upscale hotel, timestamps revealing 2-hour lunch breaks that extended to 3. In one photo, Stanford Porter was visible in the hotel restaurant, clearly timing his exit to avoid his daughter and her lover. "Stanford never thought you were good enough for his princess," Wes said carefully. "But I didn't expect him to actively enable this." Brock stared at the evidence without emotion. The betrayal hurt less than he'd expected. Perhaps he'd known longer than he'd admitted to himself. "There's more," Wes continued. They've been accessing financial information about Maddox Construction. Loan details, contract bids, client lists. Brock's expression hardened. My company. That's what this is about. Your company is about to land the Westbrook Municipal Building contract. $30 million. Your biggest job ever. Which is why our anniversary dinner reservations were so easy to get, Brock muttered. She's been postponing as they gather information. Wes leaned forward. What are you going to do? Nothing. Brock closed the folder and stood. Yet, over the next 2 weeks, Brock became a careful observer in his own marriage. He noticed how Aubrey's phone always faced down, how she took calls in other rooms, her sudden interest in his work schedule. He planted misinformation about project timelines, watching as it made its way back to his competitors through mysterious channels. Meanwhile, he prepared. He transferred key assets, secured digital records, and instructed his most loyal employees to prepare contingency plans. Lena Rodriguez, his operations manager and right hand for 7 years, was the only one who knew the full scope. They're planning something for after the Westbrook contract announcement, Lena concluded after reviewing the evidence. You should confront her now. Not yet. Brock rotated his wedding band thoughtfully. Our anniversary is next Saturday. Let's see what happens. Throughout these preparations, Brock maintained his routine. He came home at regular hours, discussed work casually with Aubrey, and even attended a dinner at Stanford Porter's mansion where he watched his father-in-law and wife exchange glances they thought he couldn't interpret. 6 days before their anniversary, Brock confirmed his reservation at Larson's, Aubrey's favorite restaurant. He ordered her favorite flowers and bought her a diamond bracelet he knew she'd never wear. The performance was necessary. He needed them to believe their plan was still secret. The night before their anniversary, Brock overheard Aubrey on the phone in her study. Everything's set. Yes, Ty, he doesn't suspect anything. After dinner tomorrow, Dad has the paperwork ready. I know what I'm doing. When she emerged, Brock was reviewing construction plans in the living room, his face revealing nothing. Big day tomorrow, he said with a practiced smile. 8 years. Can't wait, Aubrey replied, her own smile not quite reaching her eyes. Chapter 3. The Anniversary. Brock spent the morning of their anniversary preparing a surprise. He canceled the restaurant reservation and instead transformed their dining room with candles, flowers, and Aubrey's favorite music. He spent hours cooking her favorite meal, seared scallops, roasted rack of lamb, and chocolate souffle. Recipes he'd secretly practiced for weeks. At 6 p.m., the table was set with their wedding china. The lamb rested perfectly cooked. The wine, a rare vintage from the year they met, was breathing. Brock had sent Aubrey a text that morning, telling her to meet him at home instead of the restaurant for a special surprise. Her reply came at 5:30 p.m., running late. Start without me. Be there by 7:30. Brock knew exactly where she was. Wes had confirmed that Aubrey, Stanford, and Tyson were meeting at Stanford's office downtown. Finalizing their plan, no doubt. At 7:45 p.m., the food sat cold and congealed. The candles had burned halfway down. Brock sat motionless at the head of the table, staring at the empty chair across from him. His phone buzzed at 8:17 p.m. The text wasn't from Aubrey. Check the basement. Brock didn't recognize the number, but he wasn't surprised. He rose calmly, leaving his napkin folded beside his untouched plate. The basement stairs creaked as he descended into the darkness, flipping on lights as he went. Stanford Porter stood beside the water heater, a silver suitcase at his feet. His expensive suit looked out of place among the storage boxes and tools. Where's Aubrey? Brock asked. Not coming. Stanford's thin smile didn't reach his cold blue eyes identical to his daughter's. She's with Tyson, where she belongs. Interesting venue choice for this conversation. Stanford shrugged. Neutral territory. This house will be sold anyway. My house, Brock corrected. For now. Stanford kicked the suitcase toward him. She doesn't want you anymore. She got back with her ex-boyfriend. But I'm here to make a deal. Brock raised an eyebrow, but didn't touch the suitcase. I'm listening. In that case, our papers transferring controlling interest in Maddox Construction to a holding company. Sign them, and you get $3 million cash. Walk away quietly. And if I don't, Stanford's smile widened. The Westbrook contract has already been reassigned. Your company's loan applications will be denied. The building inspection delays on your current projects will continue indefinitely. You've been busy. We've been planning this for over a year. Tyson needs a construction company to complete his portfolio. You need to disappear. And Aubrey, she made her choice. She was never meant for someone like you. Brock nodded slowly. I like to hear that from her. She won't be calling. Stanford checked his watch. They're boarding a flight to the Maldives as we speak. When they return, the divorce papers will be ready. Signed tonight, and this stays civilized. As if on cue, Brock's phone began vibrating continuously. Aubrey's face flashed on the screen, call after call. Stanford frowned. What did you do? Nothing yet. Brock pocketed the still vibrating phone. But I think our plans for tonight might have hit a complication. By midnight, Aubrey had called 63 times. The text grew increasingly desperate. Please answer is not what you think. Where are you? Dad wasn't supposed to do this, please. Brock, I can explain everything. Stanford's phone had also begun ringing incessantly. His smug expression had long since vanished. What did you do? He demanded again, his composure cracking. Brock finally opened the suitcase, examining the documents inside. I think our negotiation has been interrupted. Perhaps we should reschedule when all parties can be present. Stanford grabbed his arm. Sign the papers now, or what? Brock removed Stanford's hand from his arm with careful precision. You'll tell my wife I've been unfaithful? You'll ruin my business? You'll destroy my reputation? He smiled coldly. It seems you played all your cards already, Stanford. Brock's phone continued to vibrate as he ascended the basement stairs, leaving his father-in-law sputtering behind him. The anniversary dinner sat abandoned in the dining room, a fitting metaphor for his marriage. He finally answered on Aubrey's 64th call. Brock, thank God. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm home, he replied calmly, enjoying our anniversary dinner alone. Your father just offered me $3 million to disappear. The silence on the other end confirmed everything. Brock, please. Come home, Aubrey. It's time we had an honest conversation. He ended the call and turned off his phone. Whatever game they had been playing, the rules had just changed. Now, it was his turn to make a move. Chapter 4. The Deal. Aubrey arrived at 2:37 a.m., mascara streaking her flushed face. She found Brock in his home office, calmly reviewing documents. You weren't supposed to find out this way, she blurted. No. Brock glanced up. Was I supposed to find Tyson in our bed? Or maybe after I signed away my company? It's complicated. She collapsed into the chair opposite him. Ty and I reconnected at a fundraiser. It just happened. Like the financial espionage just happened. Like sabotaging my projects just happened. Her eyes widened. I never. Save it. Brock pushed a folder across the desk. Flight confirmations to the Maldives. Hotel reservations. Bank transfers from your father to Tyson. It's all here, Aubrey. How did you? I've known for months. Brock's voice remained steady. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I built a construction empire from nothing. I noticed when nails are a quarter-inch off. Tears spilled down Aubrey's cheeks. I still care about you. No, you're scared. Brock leaned forward. Your father promised Tyson my company, but something went wrong tonight. What was it? Aubrey's shoulders slumped. The Westbrook contract. Dad said he'd redirected it to Harrison Construction, but the commissioner called Ty tonight. The contract is still yours. They can't legally reassign it. So the leverage vanished. Brock nodded, and suddenly the Maldives trip lost its appeal. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Brock closed the folder. Now you're here to salvage what you can. What do you want, Brock? Aubrey whispered. I want my own deal. Brock slid another document toward her. Divorce papers. My terms. Aubrey scanned the document, her face paling. This gives me nothing. It gives you freedom from this sham marriage. The prenup stands. My company remains mine. You keep your trust fund and personal accounts. My father won't accept this. Your father isn't my concern anymore. Brock stood. Sign it, Aubrey, or I'll ensure the DA receives evidence of corporate espionage and contract tampering involving the Porter family. You're bluffing. Try me. Brock's eyes were as cold as the dinner that still sat in their dining room. Your father came to my home on my anniversary to destroy everything I've built. Did you really think I'd just roll over? After Aubrey left with the unsigned papers, Brock called Wes. She'll be heading to Stanford's, he said. I need everything they say recorded. Already on it, Wes confirmed. What about Tyson? Let him sweat tonight. Tomorrow, we implement Phase 2. Phase 2 began at 9 a.m. when Brock met with District Attorney Paula Winston, an old client whose kitchen renovation he completed at cost when the contractor abandoned the job. This stays unofficial for now, Brock explained, presenting select evidence of the Porter's activities. I'm handling it privately, but I need protection if things escalate. By noon, Brock sat across from Stanford Porter in the older man's opulent office. You've made your point, Stanford began. Let's discuss a reasonable settlement. I already gave Aubrey my terms. Brock examined the art on Stanford's walls with deliberate indifference. Non-negotiable. $5 million, Stanford countered. You keep your company, sign the divorce papers, and walk away. Brock turned his attention to his father-in-law. You still don't understand. This isn't about money. Everything is about money. No, Stanford, this is about respect. Brock leaned forward. You targeted my company, manipulated my wife, and tried to erase 8 years of my life because you never thought I deserved your daughter. You didn't, Stanford snapped. You were a contractor with dirt under his fingernails. She was a porter, and now she's damaged goods returning to a has-been quarterback with gambling debts. Brock smiled coldly at Stanford's surprise. Yes, I know about Tyson's arrangement with those bookies in Atlantic City. The ones you've been paying off. Stanford's face hardened. What do you want? I want you to convince Aubrey to sign my divorce terms. I want Tyson to disappear from my life permanently. And I want your written guarantee that you'll never interfere with my business again. And if I refuse, Brock stood. Then I stopped being so generous with what I know. As Brock left the Porter building, he called Lena. It's done, he said. Prepare the Westbrook documents for signature tomorrow. And the special provisions? Lena asked. Leave them in, Brock confirmed. The Porters just folded. But Brock knew better than to trust Stanford Porter's surrender. That evening, he received a call from Maeve Porter, Aubrey's younger sister. They're still plotting against you, she warned. Dad's calling in favors with the zoning board. Why are you telling me this? Brock asked. Maeve had always been cordial, but distant. Because I'm tired of watching my father and sister destroy good people. She paused. And because I never told them about the Porter Foundation irregularities you helped me cover up 3 years ago. Brock remembered the accounting discrepancies Maeve had discovered, and how he'd helped restructure the reports to prevent a scandal. We'll call even then, he said, but I need details of what they're planning. By morning, Brock's divorce terms had been signed, and Stanford had provided written guarantees about Maddox Construction. But Brock knew the war was far from over. Stanford Porter never surrendered. He only retreated to regroup. Chapter 5, Gathering Intel. The Westbrook Municipal Building contract signing should have been Brock's crowning achievement. Instead, it marked the beginning of a more complex strategy. Congratulations, Commissioner Daniels said as flashbulbs popped. Maddox Construction beat out some serious competition. Quality always wins, Brock replied, knowing the Porter-controlled Harrison Construction had submitted a suspiciously lower bid at the last minute. As predicted, problems began immediately. Building permits were mysteriously delayed. Material deliveries were rerouted. Subcontractors received better offers from competing projects. Stanford's fingerprints are all over this, Wes confirmed after investigating. He's determined to make you fail spectacularly on this high-profile job. Let him think it's working, Brock instructed. Meanwhile, I need everything on Tyson Blackwell. Not just the gambling, everything. What emerged was a portrait of a man whose golden boy facade masked increasing desperation. Tyson's financial advisory business catered to wealthy clients through his connection to the Porters, but his personal finances were in shambles. He owed over $800,000 to various bookies and had been embezzling from client accounts to cover his debts. Stanford has been covering for him, Wes explained, showing bank transfers. But even he doesn't know the full extent. In Aubrey, she believes Tyson's the same star quarterback she dated in college. Stanford's kept her insulated from the ugly details. Brock considered this information carefully. She's still his weakness, then. And his meal ticket, Wes added. Without her connection to Stanford, he's finished. Brock's strategy adjusted accordingly. Instead of attacking Stanford directly, he would target the relationship between Tyson and Aubrey, create enough pressure, and one would betray the other. The pressure began subtly. Anonymous tips led to increased scrutiny of Tyson's client accounts. Several bookies received information about Tyson's other gambling debts, creating conflict among his creditors. Meanwhile, Brock ensured that photos of Tyson meeting with various women reached Aubrey through concerned friends. Within weeks, the strain began to show. Tyson and Aubrey's public appearances grew tense. Stanford was spotted having heated arguments with his future son-in-law. The Porter family's carefully cultivated image of perfection was developing cracks. Maeve continued providing inside information, reporting that Aubrey had begun questioning her relationship with Tyson after discovering text messages from someone named Raven. She still believes you're the villain in this story, Maeve warned during a clandestine meeting at a coffee shop across town. Dad has convinced her you're sabotaging Tyson out of spite. Let her believe that for now, Brock replied. The truth will be more effective when she has no one else to turn to. Meanwhile, Brock implemented a parallel strategy for his business. While appearing to struggle with the Westbrook project, he secretly fast-tracked other jobs, building goodwill with clients and officials who weren't under Stanford's influence. He restructured Maddox Construction's operations, creating subsidiaries that could continue if the main company was attacked. The most crucial intelligence came from an unexpected source. Carmela Rivera, Stanford's longtime housekeeper, whose son worked as a laborer for Maddox Construction. After Brock had personally paid for the boy's emergency surgery 3 years earlier, something Stanford had refused to help with, she became an invaluable ally. Mr. Porter keeps a separate phone, she revealed during a meeting arranged by her son. He only uses it for calls about you and the Westbrook project. This information led to Wes placing surveillance on Stanford's secondary communications, revealing a network of officials and businesspeople conspiring to sabotage Maddox Construction. Each became a thread that Brock could pull when the time was right. 4 months after the anniversary dinner, Brock had compiled comprehensive files on everyone involved in the conspiracy against him. He knew their weaknesses, their secrets, and, most importantly, their pressure points. You have enough to destroy them all, Lena observed as they reviewed the evidence in Brock's secure office. Why wait? Because destruction isn't enough, Brock replied, studying photographs of Stanford, Aubrey, and Tyson at a recent charity gala. I want them to destroy each other first. Chapter 6. Setting the Trap. The Westbrook Municipal Building rose steadily despite the obstacles, its steel framework reaching skyward like a monument to Brock's persistence. The project was 3 weeks behind schedule and over budget, but still viable, exactly as Brock had planned. They're getting confident, Wes reported after monitoring Stanford's communications. They think you're on the verge of collapse. Perfect. Brock surveyed the construction site. Time to spring the trap. The trap had multiple components, each designed to create maximum pressure at precisely the right moment. The first component targeted Tyson's gambling debts. Brock arranged for several of Tyson's creditors to demand payment simultaneously, creating a cash crisis that Stanford would have to address. At the same time, anonymous tips to the Securities Exchange Commission highlighted irregularities in accounts Tyson managed. He'll be desperate for cash, Brock explained to his inner circle, and Stanford will be reluctant to bail him out again with regulators circling. The second component involved the Porter Foundation. Using information from Maeve and documentation he'd helped conceal years earlier, Brock carefully exposed certain discrepancies to the Foundation's board members. Nothing illegal, but concerning enough to prompt an internal audit. Stanford will be distracted defending his legitimate business, Brock continued. His focus will shift away from me and toward protecting his reputation. The third and most crucial component involved Aubrey. Through careful manipulation of text messages and strategic leaks of information, Brock created the impression that Tyson was preparing to abandon her once he secured enough of Stanford's money. She's the linchpin, Brock told Wes. If she turns on either of them, the alliance collapses. The trap was baited with one final element. Rumors that Maddox Construction was on the verge of bankruptcy and that Brock was seeking a buyer. This would draw Stanford and Tyson into making their final move, attempting to acquire the company at a distressed price. When they reached for that bait, Brock said the trap closes. The execution required precise timing. On a Monday, the SEC began an informal inquiry into Tyson's investment practices. By Wednesday, 3 bookies had representatives waiting outside his office. Thursday brought news of the Porter Foundation audit. By Friday, Aubrey had discovered apparently deleted messages on Tyson's phone discussing a post-Aubrey strategy. The following Monday, Stanford Porter requested an urgent meeting with Brock. "I'll admit, you've shown more resilience than I expected," Stanford began, looking haggard from a week of containing multiple crises. "High praise," Brock replied dryly. "Let's end this war," Stanford continued. "I'm prepared to offer $15 million for Maddox Construction. Full value, despite your current difficulties." "Interesting timing," Brock observed, just as the Westbrook project reaches its most capital-intensive phase. "A coincidence? This is a gesture of reconciliation. Does Tyson know you're here?" Stanford's expression flickered. "This is strictly between us. And Aubrey. She's reevaluating her relationship choices." Brock nodded slowly. "I'll consider your offer, Stanford, but I'll need the terms in writing." As Stanford left, Brock called Lena. "The fish took the bait," he said. "Prepare the final documentation." That evening, Brock received a separate call from Tyson Blackwell himself. "We should talk man-to-man," Tyson suggested, his former athlete's confidence strained. "I know you're in a difficult position with the Westbrook project. I might be able to help." "How generous," Brock replied. "The Porter Club, at 8 tomorrow." The Porter Club was Stanford's domain, an exclusive establishment where Boston's elite conducted their most private business. By suggesting it, Brock ensured Stanford would learn of the meeting. The next evening, Brock arrived early, securing a table with a clear view of the entrance. At 8:10, Tyson arrived, looking nervous. At 8:20, Stanford entered, spotting Tyson with Brock and freezing momentarily before approaching. "What's this about?" Stanford demanded, looking between them. "Just 2 businessmen talking," Tyson replied smoothly. "About mutual opportunities." Stanford's eyes narrowed. "What opportunities?" "Tyson was about to offer me $20 million for my failing company," Brock supplied helpfully. "Which is interesting, given your $15 million offer yesterday." Stanford turned to Tyson. "What the hell are you doing?" "The same thing you're doing," Tyson shot back. "Trying to salvage something from this mess." Their argument escalated, drawing attention from nearby tables. Brock sat back, watching as months of carefully planted suspicions blossomed into open hostility. "You promised me Maddox Construction," Tyson hissed. "Then you try to cut me out. Because you've become a liability," Stanford retorted. "The SEC investigation, the gambling debts you hid from me, which you promised to handle." Brock cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, perhaps we should continue this elsewhere." But the damage was done. The fissures between Stanford and Tyson had become chasms. As they left separately, Brock made a call. "Maeve, tell Aubrey to check her email in 15 minutes." The email contained recordings of both Stanford and Tyson discussing their plans to acquire Brock's company and discard Aubrey once her usefulness ended. Brock had edited nothing. Their own words were damning enough. The final phase was set in motion. By morning, all the players would be positioned exactly where Brock needed them for his endgame. Chapter 7. First Strike. The Porter family's annual charity gala provided the perfect backdrop for Brock's first strike. As Boston's elite gathered at the Harrington Hotel ballroom, Brock arrived unexpectedly, his first public appearance since the separation from Aubrey. Conversations stuttered as he entered, impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo. He nodded politely to acquaintances, ignoring the whispers that followed him. Stanford, holding court near the bar, visibly stiffened. Aubrey, standing with Tyson across the room, paled. Neither had expected him to attend an event so firmly on Porter territory. Mr. Maddox greeted Benjamin Harrington, the elderly patriarch of Boston's banking dynasty. "Good to see you. I've been admiring your work on the Westbrook project." "Thank you," Brock replied, raising his voice just enough to carry. Despite some unusual challenges, we're back on schedule. Challenges? Permit delays, supply issues. Nothing we couldn't overcome with the right documentation. The emphasis on documentation caused Stanford to set down his scotch. Across the room, Tyson whispered urgently to Aubrey, who shook her head and moved away from him. Brock circulated through the room, dropping carefully crafted comments to strategic individuals. To the bank president, those SEC inquiries into certain financial advisors are concerning, aren't they? To the zoning commissioner, fascinating how building permits can be delayed without documentation, don't you think? To a board member of the Porter Foundation, I hear the audit is proceeding well. Each comment was innocent in isolation, but devastating in context. By the time Brock approached the bar where Stanford now stood alone, the older man was seething. "What are you doing?" Stanford demanded quietly. "Enjoying the party," Brock replied. "Your annual contribution to society's conscience. This isn't over between us." "Actually, it is." Brock sipped his whiskey. "Check your phone." Stanford's phone showed an email from the SEC confirming a formal investigation into his involvement with Tyson's client accounts. Attached were documents bearing Stanford's signature authorizing questionable transactions. "This is fabricated," Stanford hissed. "No, it's the paperwork you signed last month without reading carefully." Brock smiled. "The same paperwork that cleared me of any involvement." Across the room, Tyson was having a similar moment of panic as his phone displayed notifications of frozen accounts and scheduled interviews with federal investigators. The masterstroke came when Aubrey, now standing alone near a column, received her own message. Video footage from the Porter Club showing Stanford and Tyson arguing over who would control Maddox Construction after forcing Brock out. The ballroom's atmosphere transformed as key attendees received similar messages, each containing damaging information about Stanford or Tyson. Bank officers learned of unauthorized transfers. City officials discovered evidence of their own complicity in permit delays. Foundation board members received documentation of financial irregularities. By the time Brock departed an hour later, the damage was irreversible. Stanford was surrounded by concerned board members. Tyson was nowhere to be seen, having fled after a confrontation with his largest client. And Aubrey stood abandoned near the entrance, watching Brock leave with tears streaming down her face. The next morning, the Boston Daily reported that Stanford Porter had taken a leave of absence from the Porter Foundation pending an internal review. Tyson Blackwell's office at Harrington Wealth Management was mentioned as being temporarily closed. The article noted that several development projects associated with Porter Investments were under review by city officials. Brock read the news with satisfaction while touring the Westbrook site, where work was proceeding at an accelerated pace now that the mysterious obstacles had vanished. "Stanford's lawyers have been calling nonstop," Lena reported. "Let them call," Brock replied. "The terms haven't changed." Those terms, drafted months ago and waiting for this moment, required Stanford to divest from any business that competed with Maddox Construction, publicly renounce any claims against Brock, and resign from several influential boards that controlled city contracts. By evening, Stanford had capitulated to the first demand, selling his shares in Harrison Construction at a significant loss. The other terms would follow as pressure mounted. Tyson proved more difficult. Accosted by creditors and abandoned by Porter Protection, he made a desperate move, approaching Brock directly at his home. "I can help you destroy Stanford completely," he offered, standing on Brock's doorstep, looking disheveled. "I have information. I already have everything I need," Brock cut him off. "And nothing you need. He set me up. He used me to get to you, then planned to discard me. Just like you and Aubrey planned to do to me." Brock's voice remained calm. "The difference is, I saw it coming." As Tyson's desperation increased, so did his threats. "I'll go public with everything. Your methods, how you manipulated evidence." "With what proof?" Brock asked. "Your credibility is gone, Tyson. Your accounts are frozen. Your clients have abandoned you. Even Aubrey has realized what you are. I'll destroy you." Tyson lunged forward, but Brock was prepared. The security cameras captured everything. Tyson's attack, Brock's measured self-defense, and Tyson's subsequent arrest for assault by the police officers who arrived with suspicious promptness. With Tyson in custody and facing multiple charges, the second pillar of the conspiracy crumbled. Only Aubrey remained. Chapter 8: Desperate Measures. Aubrey arrived at Brock's office unannounced 3 days after the gala. Lena intercepted her in the reception area. "Mr. Maddox is unavailable," she stated firmly. "Please." Aubrey's composed facade cracked. "5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Brock, watching via security monitor, nodded to Lena. "Send her in." Aubrey had lost weight, her designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she took the seat across from Brock's desk. "Thank you for seeing me," she began. "I didn't know where else to go." Brock remained silent, waiting. "Everything's falling apart," she continued. "Dad's under investigation. The Foundation's accounts are frozen. Tyson's been arrested." She looked up. "You did all of this?" "I simply returned what was offered to me," Brock replied evenly. "I made a terrible mistake," Aubrey whispered. "I should never have betrayed you." "Which betrayal are you apologizing for? The affair? The corporate espionage? Or the plan to strip me of everything I've built?" "All of it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was confused. Tyson made me believe you'd been using me to access Dad's connections. Dad convinced me you were just waiting to divorce me once you secured the Westbrook contract. And you believed them without ever asking me. I know that now." She reached for his hand across the desk, but he withdrew it. "Brock, please. We can start over. I still love you." "No, Aubrey, you don't." Brock's voice remained steady. "You love security. You love status. Right now, I represent your best option for both." "That's not true, isn't it? Your father's reputation is in tatters. Tyson is facing prison. Your family's assets are under scrutiny. You're alone for the first time in your life." Brock leaned forward. "And suddenly, you remember your love for me." Aubrey's expression hardened slightly. "What do you want from me? Begging? Public humiliation? Tell me what it will take to end this." "Nothing you can offer." Brock stood. "Our divorce is final. Your father is meeting my terms. Tyson is facing consequences. Justice has been served. So all of this was just revenge?" Aubrey's voice rose. "You've destroyed my family for payback." "No, Aubrey. I protected what's mine from people who try to take it. There's a difference." As security escorted her out, Aubrey made one final, desperate appeal. "I'll tell everyone how you set us up, how you manipulated evidence and bribed officials." Brock simply nodded to Lena, who handed Aubrey a final envelope. Inside was documentation of Aubrey's own involvement. Emails, recorded conversations, bank transfers she'd authorized to fund the conspiracy against Brock. "Your choice," Brock said, "but consider carefully who has more to lose." That evening, Stanford made his countermove. News outlets received anonymous information about alleged defects in the Westbrook project, fabricated safety concerns designed to trigger inspections and delays. Brock had anticipated this. Within hours, his team provided comprehensive documentation proving the allegations false, along with evidence tracing the false claims to Stanford's remaining allies. The media narrative quickly shifted from potential scandal to apparent smear campaign. The next morning, Stanford arrived unannounced at the Westbrook construction site, demanding to see Brock. Security brought him to Brock's temporary office overlooking the rising structure. "You've won," Stanford conceded, looking every day of his 68 years. "Name your final price." "I already have." Brock gestured to the contracts on his desk, the same terms Stanford had been resisting. "You'll destroy me completely." "No, Stanford. I'll leave you enough to live comfortably in retirement. Away from Boston. Away from any business interests that might cross mine." And Aubrey, she made her choices. Now she lives with them. Stanford signed the documents without further protest. As he stood to leave, he asked one final question. "How did you do it?" "We had everything planned perfectly." "You planned to take what someone else built," Brock replied. "I've spent my life building things to last. That's the difference between us." After Stanford left, Wes arrived with final confirmation. All the players had capitulated. Tyson had accepted a plea deal that would send him to prison for 5 years. Stanford had booked a one-way flight to his property in the Cayman Islands. The Porter Foundation board had restructured without any family members in leadership positions. "It's over," West said. "They're finished." "Not quite," Brock replied. "There's one loose end." Chapter 9. Reckoning. The Westbrook Municipal Building opened on schedule, its gleaming glass and steel facade dominating the city skyline. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew Boston's elite, conspicuously missing the Porter family for the first time in generations. Brock stood at the center, shaking hands with the mayor as cameras flashed. His company had not only survived but thrived, securing 3 additional major contracts in the aftermath of the Porter conspiracy's collapse. "You've become the city's premier builder," Commissioner Daniels remarked during the reception. "Amazing how quickly things change." "Some things change," Brock agreed. "Others stay exactly as they should." As the celebration continued, Brock received word that Aubrey was waiting outside. Despite everything, she had maintained a dignified public silence, neither defending her father and Tyson nor attacking Brock. This restraint had preserved what remained of her social standing. Brock found her standing beside the commemorative plaque bearing his name. "Congratulations," she offered. "It's magnificent." "Thank you." Brock studied her. The months had been hard, but she'd regained her composure. She was still beautiful, still a Porter, even if that name carried less weight now. "I'm leaving Boston," she said. "Fresh start in Chicago." Brock nodded. "Wise choice." "Before I go," she hesitated. "I never asked why you answered my call that night. After 63 attempts, you could have let me panic all night. I wanted you to know it was me." Brock replied simply. "Not circumstance. Not bad luck. Me. Was any of it real?" Her voice caught. "Us, I mean, it was." Brock's expression softened momentarily. "Until it wasn't." She nodded, blinking back tears. "Can you ever forgive me?" "No." The word was gentle but absolute. "Some betrayals can't be forgiven, Aubrey. Only survived." As she turned to leave, Brock added, "But I wish you well in Chicago." Sincerely. Her sad smile acknowledged the closure in his words. They both knew this was the last time they would speak. Later that evening, Brock stood alone on the rooftop terrace of the Westbrook building, surveying the city that had nearly been taken from him. His phone buzzed with a message from Maeve Porter. "Dad left the country today. The lawyers finalized everything. It's truly over. Thank you for keeping your word about my involvement." Brock typed back, "Your trust fund is secure. Good luck with medical school." Another message arrived, this one from Lena. "Harrison Construction acquisition completed. We now own all their assets and contracts." The final piece. Stanford's former company, once positioned to replace Maddox Construction, was now a subsidiary of it. The circle was complete. 6 months later, Brock stood in his new office in the Maddox Tower, formerly the Porter Building, purchased at a substantial discount during the Foundation's reorganization. The city spread out below him, including the Westbrook building gleaming in the distance. West joined him at the window. Tyson's parole was denied. Stanford's permanent residency in the Caymans was approved. Aubrey's engaged to some tech entrepreneur in Chicago. "And we just secured the airport expansion contract," Brock added. "The largest in the city's history." "Not bad for a guy with dirt under his fingernails," West quipped. Brock smiled. "I still get my hands dirty. It's how I know the foundation is solid." That evening, as Brock drove home to his new house overlooking the harbor, he passed the old neighborhood where his anniversary dinner had sat cold on the table 18 months earlier. The house had sold quickly after the divorce, purchased by a young family who would never know the betrayal its walls had witnessed. His phone rang through the car speaker. "Mr. Maddox? This is Caroline from the mayor's office. The committee unanimously approved your urban renewal proposal. The Porter District will be renamed Westbrook Commons. The final vestige of the Porter family's civic legacy erased." "Thank you, Caroline. That's excellent news." As he ended the call, Brock felt no particular satisfaction or triumph, only the calm certainty that comes with completion. His company was secure. His enemies were neutralized. His future was entirely his own. The cold dinner that night had been the end of one chapter. Tonight, Brock Maddox would dine alone again, not as a victim of betrayal, but as the architect of his own vindication. Some called it revenge. He called it justice. The distinction mattered only to those who understood the difference between destroying something and building something that would last. His heart, like his resolve, remained cold toward those who had betrayed him, but his vision for the future burned brighter than. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.